So as the world reels from the new massive tariffs applied by the Trump administration on almost every country in the world, there are a few names that pop up when you look at the list because they're not on the list. And one of those countries in particular is quite surprising, as it is a significant regional power, and that is Russia. So what is going on? How can Donald Trump be imposing these enormous tariffs, not just on China, but also on the US's allies, like even Israel got 70%. Just looking there, the European Union is 20%, Japan 24%, South Korea 26%, but Russia, nul point, absolutely zero. So let's get into it and examine some of the potential reasons behind this huge omission. Привit, my name is Connor Klein and welcome to Geopolitics with Connor Klein. I'm an expert in international relations. Have been living in Ukraine for many years, speak both Ukrainian and Russian. And I have a background in international relations, specialization in the region from the best university in the world on the topic from the US. So I'm here to give you a more unique and insightful analysis of the happenings in the Russo-Ukrainian war. And normally I don't comment too much on domestic political issues and also things like trade and economics that aren't specific to the Russo-Ukrainian war. But this is such a glaring omission by the Trump administration that it is worth mentioning because it is indicative of a new US foreign policy vis-a-vis Russia. So let's just go and look at the official explanation as to why Russia is not on Donald Trump's new tariffs list. There are actually a few countries, I think there's 4 of them, that have been omitted. These tariffs are obviously unprecedented in the last century, basically, but that is a different topic for a different video. The 4 countries are Cuba, Belarus, North Korea, and Russia. And the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt stated that the US sanctions to Russia preclude any meaningful trade, but Russia and US, while they do very little trade, it is about $3 billion, I think, per year. And there are other countries, as is pointed out, I'm just looking at an article here online, like Syria, for example, only has $11 million of products that are traded. These tariffs apply to goods, they don't apply to services. So in certain cases, services are the main part of actually the commercial exchange. But $11 million of products, but they got sanctioned, but then Russia, Cuba, and Belarus, and North Korea do not. And it is interesting when we look at it in terms of what countries have given support to Russia, what countries, well, it's only really a few countries. It's basically Belarus, North Korea, Iran, and to a lesser extent, China, we can say, in terms of providing some sort of material and troops, even in North Korea's case, to Russia's war effort against Ukrainians. Iran was sanctioned, so that is a high priority for the US and Donald Trump. And China is obviously the biggest, probably the biggest target of the Trump administration in terms of redressing the trade flows globally. But it is interesting that I don't really know why Cuba is there. That's a bit of, I don't really have much of an explanation for that. But Belarus has assisted Russia. It's in alliance with Russia. The Russian troops in 2022, they actually came through Belarusian territory to attack Kyiv and other parts of northern Ukraine. And North Korea has actually got its own troops helping Russia, never mind the other material that they have sent. So definitely very interesting that there is that, I guess, coincidence, we can say, that 2 countries that are helping Russia, have been in alliance with Russia, are 2 of the other 3 that have been concluded. So it doesn't make much sense that Russia's been left out of the list by the official explanation because preclude any meaningful trade. There are lots of countries that, you know, the kind of joke on the internet is that there are some islands, I think it's called McDonald and Hearn Islands, that don't have any people living there, just penguins, and they got sanctioned. So in terms of new tariffs, so why not Russia, Cuba, Belarus, and North Korea? And more worryingly, from the Ukrainian perspective, we've seen since Donald Trump has come back into office in January that he has effectively taken Russia's side in terms of the Russo-Ukrainian war negotiations towards some sort of, presumably it's a temporary a cessation of hostilities. He's put a lot of pressure on Ukraine. He went as far as even to cut off the aid and intelligence when Russia, at the same time basically when Russia took back a large part of the Kursk Oblast that was under Ukrainian occupation. Ukraine had seized this part of Kursk that is de jure part of Russia, and Russia was struggling for many months it was last summer, so it's taken them about 9 months more or less to try and evict the Ukrainians from there, and it happened to coincide with Donald Trump cutting off the intelligence and the aid to Ukraine. Whether that made a significant difference is unclear at this point, and we've obviously seen the diplomatic catastrophe in the Oval Office between Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. Donald Trump in general has said almost nothing negative about Vladimir Putin since he came to office. He's been talking about doing trade deals with Russia. Russia is a tiny part of the world economy. So that is very curious to be focusing on that. And then at the same time, introducing tariffs against the European Union, which does infinitely more trade with the US and is a lot more valuable as a trade partner than Russia presumably ever could be in the short to medium term. So just all the data points are pointing towards a rapprochement or attempt to rapprochement between the US and Russia. Another reset that has obviously failed with George Bush Jr. and Barack Obama. And this looks like a third attempt to do it. And the fact that they were not even on this list of sanction for tariffs as newly sanctioned. I mean, it's kind of sanction introducing tariffs is definitely detrimental to the trade flows between the two countries, and in general it's going to be bad for both sides. But the fact that Russia was one of the 4 countries left off and the only country with a significant economy, even if it's a small part of the global economy, it's going to be less than 2%. The EU is probably not far off 20%, so you got 10 times of a difference. Really indicates strongly that Donald Trump is going to go all out to find a way to reach some sort of agreement with Vladimir Putin, presumably to stop the hostilities in Ukraine for a certain amount of time. And he has made huge inducements, in particular leaving Russia off this list of countries, which is almost every country in the world. And curious that also North Korea and Belarus are there as well. So I'm going to leave it at that. Drop me some comments down below the video about why you think that Russia is not on this list, and also maybe North Korea, Cuba, and Belarus, and what you think it indicates in terms of Donald Trump's strategy vis-a-vis Russia and vis-a-vis Ukraine. He has also, of course, his administration talked about Ukraine giving up territory. They've basically been conceding a lot of bargaining chips. He's been handing over the cards, to use his own metaphor that Donald Trump used in the Oval Office with Volodymyr Zelensky in that clash. He's basically handing over all the cards to Vladimir Putin, and what this all means in terms of a grand strategy, whether that makes sense or whether there really is a strategy at all. So see you in the next one. Slava Ukraini. Do побачення.